Have a good day, everyone. I'm GB Antonis, currently taking Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in English 2 at Mount Carmel College of Casiguran. Today, I'm going to report my assigned topics, where is the historical foundation of education, education in primitive society, key period in educational history. Historical foundation of education. Education of school is an institution created by society. Education is a function of society and as such arises from the nature and character of society itself. Society seeks to preserve itself, and to do this, it maintains the functions and institutions, one of which is education, to assure its survival, stability, and convenience. As John Dewey claimed, it is the school that introduces and trains a child of society into membership within such a little community, saturating him with the spirit of service and providing him with the instruments of effective self-direction. When a school succeeds to do this, in the words of Dewey, we shall have the deepest and best guarantee of a larger society which is worthy and harmonious and lovely. Socialization is a process of learning the roles, statuses, and values necessary for participation in social institutions according to Brinkerhoff D. 1989. Socialization is a lifelong process. It occurs primarily during early childhood, but as we progress in infancy to old age, we shed all roles and adopt new ones. Role learning that prepares us for future roles is termed anticipatory socialization, according to Brinkerhoff D. 1989. Because of anticipatory socializations, most of us are more or less prepared for our future roles like spouse, parent, and professional teacher. Family is the most important agent of socialization. Psychology tells us that the self-concept formed during childhood has lasting consequences. Besides, the parent, religion, social class, and ethnicity influence the child's social roles and self-concept, which in turn influence the expectations that others have for the child, and they determine the groups with which the child will interact outside the family, according to Brinkerhoff D. 1989. The school is also an important agent of socialization. It is an institution charged by society to impart specific knowledge and skills necessary for functioning in a society. They are also charged with the task of transmitting society's cultural values. Education in primitive society. In primitive societies, illiterate persons face the problems of survival in an environment that pitted them against natural forces and wild animals. To survive, human beings needed food, shelter, warm clothing, to transform a hostile environment into one that is life-sustaining. Humankind developed life skills that eventually became cultural patterns. These life skills included tool or instrument, making adherence to the moral behavior, code of group life, and language. Early humankind found security in group life based on kinship and tribal patterns. Life in the human group was educational as children observed and learned from the elders and as they were deliberately taught by the parents and elders. For these cultural patterns to continue, the adults had to teach these skills and values to their children. Socialization, a function of education in society. It is a process by which individuals internalize the norms and values of society, and so social and cultural continuity are attained. This is also informed education in action. As abstract thinkers, human beings could create, use, and manipulate symbols. They could communicate with one another through gestures, sounds, and words. These symbols were expressed in signs, pictographs, and letters. The creation and introduction of oral and written language made a great leap on literacy, which in turn had tremendous educational consequences, which citizens of a civilized society like netizens of the 21st century now enjoy. Key period in educational history. Historical group or period. Primitive societies, 7000 BC to 5000 BC. Educational goals is to teach group survival skills, to cultivate group cohesiveness. The curriculum, practical skills of hunting, fishing, food gathering, stories, myth songs, poems, and dances. The agents, parents, tribal, elders, and pariahs. The influences on Western education. It emphasizes on the role of informal education in transmission of skills and values. Historical group or period, Roman 750 BC to AD 450. The educational goal is to develop sense of civic responsibility for republic and then empire to develop administrative and military skills. The curriculum, reading, writing, academic, laws of 12 tables, law, philosophy. The agents, private schools and teachers, schools of rhetoric. The influences on Western education, to emphasize on ability to use education for practical administrative skills relating education to civic responsibility. Historical group or period, Arabic AD 700 to AD 1350. The educational goal is to cultivate religious commitment to Islamic beliefs, to develop expertise in mathematics, medicine, and science. The curriculum, reading, writing, mathematics, religious scientific studies. Agents, mosques, court, and schools. The influences on Western education, Arabic numerals and computation, re-entry of classical material on science and medicine. Another historical group or period, medieval AD 500 to AD 1400. The educational goal is to develop religious commitment, knowledge, and ritual, to re-establish social order to prepare persons for appropriate role. The curriculum, reading, writing, arithmetic, liberal arts, philosophy, theology, craft, military tactics, and chivalry. The agents, parish, charity, and cathedrals, schools, universities, apprenticeship, night room. The influences on Western education, establishing the structure, content, and organization of the universities as a major institution of higher education. The institutionalization and preservation of knowledge. Another historical group or period, Renaissance AD 1350 to AD 1500. The educational goal is to cultivate a humanist who was expert in the classics Greek and Latin, to prepare courtiers for service to dynastic leader. The curriculum, Latin, Greek, classical literature, poetry, art. The agents, classical humanist educators, schools such as Lycée, Gymnasium, Latin Grammar School. The influences on Western education, an emphasis on literary knowledge, excellence, and style as expressed in classical literature, a two-track system of schools. And the last one is the Reformation AD 1500 to AD 1600. The educational goal is to cultivate a sense of commitment of particular religious denominations, to cultivate general literacy. The curriculum, reading, writing, arithmetic, catechism, religious concepts, and rituals. Latin and Greek theology. The agents, vernacular elementary schools for the masses, classical schools for the upper classes. The influences on Western education, a commitment to universal education to provide literacy to the masses, the origins of school systems with supervision to ensure to doctrinal conformity. That would be all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, especially to our instructors, Ma'am Carla Joy T. Palaris, and my name is Joyce Anti Bernal from BS Ed 2. So for today, I am going to discuss the history of the Philippine education. Before the Philippines attained complete independence in 1946, the country's education system was patterned on the system of Spain and the United States countries, which are colonized and governed by the country from more than 300 years. However, after independence, the country's educational system has constantly reformed. As the summary for this chapter, it focuses on education is a function of society. As such, what are taught in school arises from the nature of character of society itself. What society consider important is what the school teach. So let's see how the education in the Philippines has evolved from how it is today. In this chapter, the history of the Philippines focuses on time during pre-colonial period, the Spanish period, American regime, Japanese occupation, and the post-colonial period. The education during the pre-colonial period. The education back then was very informal, unstructured, and decentralized. So basically, most children are focused on vocational trainings and lesser academics, which means their fathers taught them to look for food based on their livelihood, maybe farming or fishing, and the mothers taught their daughters to do chores at home. And in this lifestyle, they were trained to be a good husband and wife. And the teachers were the tribal tutors, and they only teach us Babaylan and Catalonan. Education during the Spanish period. When the Spanish came here in the Philippines, the education has changed. It became more formal and organized, which has conducted by the religious order. Upon learning the local language and writing system, the missionaries start teaching Christianity, the Spanish language, and the Spanish culture. This religious order opened the first school and universities as early as 16th century. Christian doctrines, sacred songs, music, and prayers were taught because they were required for confession and communion. They started opening schools separate for boys and girls. The first kolehiyo was founded in Manila in 1589, the Universidad de San Ignacio. In conclusion, the education during the Spanish period is inadequate, suppressed, controlled, and it was religion-centered. The educational degree of 1863. In 1863, the Spanish promulgate on educational degree. The degree was established a complete system of education in the country. Required two elementary schools for each municipality, one for boys and one for girls. This law gave the Filipinos complete system of education to elementary and to college level. Religion was the core in the curriculum, including subjects like reading, writing, arithmetic, history of Christian doctrine, Spanish language, vocal music, and agriculture for boys, and needlework for girls. The American regime. The education during the American period is to promote democratic ideals and the way of life, formation of good citizen and including the responsibilities of the people. There were three levels of education. Number one is the elementary level. Number two is the secondary or the high school level. And the three is college or tertiary level. Religion was not included in the curriculum of education. Normal vocational, agricultural, and business school were also open. The first American school was established in Corregidor in May 1898, and 7 more schools was opened in the city of Manila in 1899. The Commonwealth period, 1935 to 1942. In 1935 Constitution, Free education in public school was provided all over the country. The vocational education and household chores like sewing, cooking, and farming were also given importance. During the Commonwealth period, their aim is to develop moral character, personal discipline, civic conscience, vocational efficiency, and to teach their duties of citizenship. Vocational and adult education were given emphasis during the Commonwealth period. It was during Commonwealth regime that an organized effort to develop a common compliance with the mandate of the 1935 Constitution.
Hi everyone, I'm Precious Jewel Bernal and here is the continuation of the history of post-colonial Philippines. Post-colonial philosophies of education in the Philippines emerged from a newly independent government's desire to unite disparate populations under a common national identity, which was heavily influenced by Western conceptions of personhood and patriotism. The islands, collectively known as the Philippines, however, are home to nearly 200 distinct ethno-linguistic groups. The imposition of a universal national identity upon such a diverse populace entails the erasure of identities, knowledge systems, practices, and ways of life that differ from state-imposed norms. Education is a critical site for the subjugation of difference, as evidenced by the state's imposition of a national curriculum. Yet, the national curriculum not only serves to submerge difference as decolonizing pedagogies and philosophies of education in the Philippines often rise out of collective resistance to the marginalizing aspects of schooling in the region. Post-colonial philosophies of education in the Philippines are, as such, situated within the historical tensions between the national curriculum, the central government's economic and political agendas, collective calls for human rights, and the philosophies, practices, and knowledge systems of indigenous peoples or IPs. The aims of education in post-colonial Philippines was, first, education aimed at the full of realization of the democratic ideals and way of life. Next, is the civil service eligibility of teachers was made permanent pursuant to Republic Act 1079 in June 15, 1954. The next one is a daily flag ceremony was made compulsory in all schools, including the singing of national anthem pursuant to Republic Act 1265, approved on June 11, 1955. And the other one is the curricular offerings in all schools, the life, the works and writings of Jose Rizal, especially the Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo shall be included in all levels. The other one is the elementary education was nationalized and matriculation fees was abolished. Magna Carta for teachers was also passed into law by virtue of Republic Act 4670. The fundamental aims of education in the 1973 Constitution are to foster love of country, teach the duties of citizenship, develop moral character, self-discipline, and scientific, technological, and vocational efficiency. Here are the other developments on Philippine education. The first thing that they developed is the integration of values in all learning areas. The second one is the emphasis on mastery of learning. And the other one is the YDT and CAT introduced as new courses, media of instruction, bilingual education policy, mandates the use of English and Filipino separately as media of instruction in schools. And the other one is the Education Act of 1982, created by the Ministry of Education, Culture, and Sports. Under this, they also developed the National College Entrance Examination, or also called as NCEE, which in this part is also included the Executive Order number 117, which is presented by Mrs. Corazon C. Aquino, or our late President, renamed the Ministry of Education to Culture and Sports, or DECS, in 1987. The other one is the creation of the Board for Professional Teachers, composed of 5 under PRC, the replacement of PBET, or Professional Board Examination for Teachers, to LET, or Licensure Examination for Teachers. The other one is the transfer of authority of administering the LET from CSE and DECS to the Board of Professional Teachers under the PRC. And the next one is the trifocalization of education system. One is the trifocal education system refocused on DECS mandate to basic education, which covers elementary, secondary, and non-formal education, including culture and sports. TESDA now administers the post-secondary middle level manpower training and development under Republic Act 7796, Technical Education and Skills Development Act of 1994. They also developed the Commission on Higher Education, which is the CHED, and it is responsible for the higher education, Republic Act 7722, Higher Education Act of 1994. In August 2001, they also developed their Republic Act 9155, otherwise called the Governance of Basic Education Act. It was passed by transforming the name Department of Education, Culture and Sports, or the DECS, to the Department of Education, or DepEd, and redefining the role of field offices, regional offices, division offices, district offices, and schools. Republic Act 9155 provides a framework for school head empowerment by strengthening their leadership roles, and second, school-based management within the context of transparency and local accountability. The goal of basic education is to provide the school-age population and young adults with skills, knowledge, and values to become caring, self-reliant, productive, and patriotic citizens. Governance of Basic Education Act, or Republic Act 9155, was passed renaming the DECS to the DepEd and redefining the role of field offices, which include the regional offices, division offices, district offices, and schools. Values education is offered as a separate subject in NSEC and integrated in all subjects in both curricula and implementation of new secondary education curriculum, or NSEC. Republic Act 10157, January 20, 2012. Kindergarten Act, an act institutionalizing the kindergarten education into the basic education system. And the other one is the K-12 program, or Republic Act 10533, on May 15, 2013. The K-12 program covers the kindergarten and 12 years of basic education, or 6 years of primary education, 4 years of junior high school, and 2 years of senior high school or SHS. To provide sufficient time for mastery and concepts and skills, develop lifelong learners, and prepare graduates for tertiary education, middle level skills, development, employment, and entrepreneurship. That would be all. Thank you.